Another taken out by the wall.
What? Spin what?
A scene played out before.
Welcome to the Art of Sean podcast. I'm Ko.
And I'm Yao.
Good to see you again, brother. It's been a while, but I'm glad we're back again here having great conversation. You know, one thing that happened, I was just thinking about back in college, because I know we've been talking about light and darkness. We've been talking about how to live a more godly life, in a sense that how you achieve your purpose and your goal at the same time being in alignment. So I just remember when I was back in college, some of my brothers and sisters who, because they knew my dad was a pastor, they knew I came from a religious background. So when it always came time for us to have conversations, sometimes the conversations fell into the realm of like a defense. Like, I know you're in the church, but I don't do this, or they felt a little uneasy at times. And it was always, I felt like it was my job to kind of normalize the situation, to let them know I'm no better than them and that we're all the same. Did you ever run into those type of issues growing up?
Yeah,
when you were in college?
Trying to practically, well, I went to the Christian Liberal Arts University, so the context was a little different, but yet no, still the same, because they're like, well,
Same thing.
I don't know all the Bible like you. There's always this comparative, because that's the way we've been systematized to think. That there's this kind of comparison or competition about who knows what and who doesn't know what. But at the end of the day, the book, that's when you're coming at things from a religious standpoint. But once it becomes more relational, and you read the book from a group of peoples that the Most High was interfacing with, that was supposed to play a role in all of creation, then you begin to see things more from a practical standpoint. And that took me years to get there. So now I see the scriptures from a cultural as opposed to religious set of rules. Because if it's by rules, then I've broken a lot of rules.
Oh, for sure. That idea of rules and boundaries, almost like operating in a box. And we find that a lot of times it becomes very difficult, because even when we talk about youth, we talk about ourselves. I mean, any humankind, we tend to go the other direction because we feel like it's too difficult, and you feel constrained, you feel constricted, like you can't be free. You know, like I was saying in our previous conversation, I heard on a podcast a gentleman say that the gift of God is freedom. The whole idea of life has been given by God, and that's the idea of freedom. But it's man's system and structures who take that freedom away and force you to live in this suppressed environment. So things that we think are abnormal in actuality could be normal, but it's because you're in a constraint, you're in a more of a crouched position, you feel like you don't have any room to breathe, and it's just everything is overwhelming. And oftentimes we see that a lot of times in life when we're dealing with successes and failures. So the conversation I was having with some of my brothers and sisters that I've dealt with in college was always that I always wanted them to understand that it's not about who you perceive me to be or who you perceive a pastor to be, that in the eyes of God, we're all the same. Because the scriptures say that we're all children of the King, right? We're all made in his image. So just because one person is sitting on a pulpit doesn't mean that you're any different than that. And that goes back to the conversations we used to have debates about amongst our band about what's ministry and what's not ministry. Like, because we used to be indoctrinated to believe that ministry only took place from one direction. That means you had to be in front of the mic, in front of the pulpit, saying anything, versus that your whole life is a ministry. And when we say your whole life is a ministry, it's ultimately coming down to what purpose and a life of fulfillment. Because everybody, no matter who we are on the planet, has a purpose.
Yes.
But it's up to us to understand and to seek to figure out what that purpose is. And because everybody has a purpose.
And purpose is tied to so many different factors in nature. And when we're outside of the natural law, then you get chaos. That's why they say religion is division, because religion is man's attempt to try to control nature or the ways of the Most High and try to impede it on captives or people or denominations. Because you think about, we talked about it the other day with New King James Version, International Version, English Standard Version, Revised Standard Version. All the denom or divisiveness is set in order. So that made me think, okay, I got to go further beyond what I'm being told and see where's the root. We keep going back to that same concept of root, spirit, root, fruit. Spirit, root, fruit. The spirit is where the Most High dwells. The mental, the emotional, all that intangibles, your thought process, the way you operate. Because if you think something and you continue to act upon that, you bear the fruit of it. That's the environment you live in. That's why you have some people who live in 91606. Some people live in 90210. This is California zip codes. So you go to the nicer side of town, Beverly Hills, things, a certain type of mindset in people and ways of approaching the law, looking at the law, they move in, right? That's one King James version, right? And then you have the lower tier, or where the smaller communities or the social classes that are of lower income brackets. They live in a certain environment, and when you get there, you know you're there as well. Because guess what? You have, like you said, we got bodegas, or you got check cash places, you got fast food, no whole food. All that is based on the structures that have been built, and that same process is put in quote unquote religion. But the book is not a religious book. The religion and the Most High are two different things. So God can be anything. So when someone says God, we think that means he's talking about the same, because we're all the same. Yes and no. We are the same, but we're not the same. Fingerprints are not the same, even with your sibling, different fingerprints. So, but all of us have, like you said, purpose. You have a reason for why you're here. Some people are supposed to be the clean agents, just like shrimp and lobster. What do? They clean the earth. That's their job, right? So when the scripture puts certain dietary laws in place, you can understand what that meant. If you're looking at it from a natural perspective, you try to look at the ways of the Most High and spiritual law that's embedded into cultural practices by a religious lens, then that's when it becomes rules, because you're not built to do that. Imagine a bee being told to do what only lions can do. Oh, I can't do that. You see what I'm saying? They're going to say to you, oh, I can't do that. That's too hard. So when you, as a pastor's son, or in an environment where it's easier for you to flow in those things because you grew up that way, it's a part of your cultural heritage, it's already embedded in your culture. A lot of the stuff you read in the scripture is embedded in what they call African culture. You can see it 100% all the way through, right? But that may not be the culture for everyone else. So the way you interpret the scriptures and the way I interpret it ultimately has to be in the way that you live it. If you're not living it, or you don't know how to live it, or you've been told to live it a certain way based on religious dogma or doctrinal assignment, you're going to constantly vacillate in your walk with the Most High, because you feel that you're not good enough, or you can never hold those laws. But once the Most High pulls it back and lets you see that the scriptures, all Genesis was a book on agriculture, and that it's the alignments of how systems are made. If you try to read that from dogma or from ideologies from other cultural groups or from religious, you see those are all different tiers I just mentioned there. Those are all separate tiers, encroaching in on the interpretation. Snuff it out.
Another taken out by the wall. What? I've seen this play out before. Yeah, they talk good, say they want heal. It's time to heal. Change the outcomes if it's real. Is it? I see me die so many times, think I've given up.